I work for NSFT, have been for nearly 4 years now. I'm also a carer for my dad. He's got schizophrenia, so I've been a carer for probably over 25 years. And I suppose my main experience to talk about would be the first time that I've had to have a dual role in terms of being a carer but also being a member of staff within NSFT. So understand, I suppose, the fact that I've got colleagues. I show a massive amount of empathy for my colleagues, whether they're close colleagues or people in the wider trust. But also having to stop at the door and think, right, I need my carer's hat on now. Just obviously advocate for my dad, I suppose, more than anything would be what I'm trying to say. So on the run up to him becoming quite poorly, it's all on me. So it's literally, I'm all he's got really. So I think that's what then has the impact, because you're trying to then come into work, leave the carer's hat at the door and be a member of NSFT, but then having to very quickly leave the NSFT hat at the door and then become a carer. So I think, you know, on the run up to his last admission, that was quite a hard thing to navigate, swapping those hats really, really quickly. Being in a room full of professionals who rightly so are my colleagues, but also actually I'm here as a carer, so trying to always be very mindful of how I speak to people, but in my back of my mind I'm very much have an element of frustration, but I'm still holding on to that empathy because I know how hard people work, but I'm still there then as a daughter to make sure that my dad's getting the best service he can. I think I would say my main one is communication. So I know my dad extremely well. I'm going to, you know, he's my dad. And at times I didn't feel listened to. So I think that's one of my frustrations where, you know, multidisciplinary meetings were taking place and I wasn't really listened to when we were talking about perhaps historical type, you know, information or medication that had been previously used. I felt, you know, at times that people were quite dismissive of what I knew, because I'm not clinically trained, but then I'm very aware of my dad's circumstances and his illness, and it's very long term, and I know a lot of signs and symptoms. So again, I think that was difficult, especially as well on the run up to the admission. You know, I know that my dad's becoming really unwell and you're just waiting. You know where it's going to end up. Crisis. It's going to end up in an admission. And yeah, that's hard when I'm having to keep, you know, I mean, I will say at the time, you know, the member of staff who was supporting my dad was amazing. You know, his communication skills were just phenomenal. I cannot fault him at all. You know, it would be the text message, you know, I'm just going to see Dad, what are your thoughts? Or how's he been? I've just been on leave. So that was really, really good. I suppose once we had the admission, I think sometimes that little bit of communication was lost. So there'd be meetings that I only knew with a couple of days in advance, or there was one particular meeting that really stands out, and there was about, I want to say maybe about 7 or 8 people in this MDT meeting. And then we were just beginning to talk, but then somebody else knocked on the door, walked in and sat down, and I just literally said, can we just stop, please? Can we just please introduce ourselves? You know, because it wasn't even that. I will then say, though, the next MDT meeting, everybody did introduce themselves. So I think that was, you know, that's, but I think often carers can be forgotten about. And we are a wealth of information. And I think it's to help the trust. I suppose the support that I got in terms of my own individual team, I cannot fault. Absolutely amazing. You know, from just that colleague support to having the support to take carers leave when I needed it, to have a really understanding line manager at the time, to understand that actually what is going on in my personal life is having a massive impact on my professional life. I can't fault that. I think during the admission, just giving some leaflets to me wasn't helpful. I think I would have appreciated maybe somebody taking some time to sit down and allocate maybe, I don't know, half an hour. I know people are busy, but just to maybe go through exactly what was in this leaf, you know, what the trust did or other organisations, rather than for me to read, because I've already got enough going on, you know, that actually this envelope of leaflets, as much as they're really informative at the time, I think I probably would have been better having somebody really explain in detail, actually this is available, that's available, do you know who to contact, do you know who's, you know, that would have been helpful to me.